Hey guys, my name's Asher. I'm 22 years old, and my Giantess crush almost crushed me. Literally. This all started when I fell in love with the girl next door. Her name was Estelle, and she was drop-dead gorgeous with crystal blue eyes and a laugh that sounded like it was just for me. People describe me as timid, especially my sister, Lois. It's true. I tended to worry a lot. Behind the wheel of a car, for example. Did you know that on average there are 17,250 car crashes per day in the U.S. alone? Facts like these were constantly swirling around in my head, but not just about car crashes. Thoughts were the same for illness, employment, and even relationships. I feared getting my heart broken. I mean, after all, in the U.S., a divorce occurs every 36 seconds. I worked as a file clerk for a university research facility, and most of my time was spent alone, which suited me fine. It was a safe job with good benefits. One day, a woman moved in next door. Everything about Estelle seemed perfect from outside my window. My heart was screaming at me to go and talk to her. "Do something bold," it said. But I didn't. I just closed the blinds and turned away. Sure, I'd see her when we went out to get the mail, and I'd bump into her at the washroom, but I wasn't sure what to say. So I asked Google about some good pickup lines, but they were all cheesy. I settled on introducing myself. I complimented her taste in music, and I enjoyed the jams she was always playing. "My name's Estelle. What's your name?" To be honest, I forgot my name for a second, and I think she could see the dopey twinkle in my eye. I was even distracted at work and dropped these envelopes down the wrong chute, and I had to go all the way down to the basement to get them back. I was getting up the nerve to ask her out, but she beat me to the punch. And when we caught each other at the pool, she asked me to stay and hang out. She played this great music and even asked me to help her put on her tanning lotion. After a swim, she invited me over to her place for a glass of wine. There was something about her that sparkled brighter than all the others. One glass of wine turned into two, and the music carried us away. I asked her to dance right there in her living room, and when we kissed, I felt like a new man. Our evening together was like a fireworks show. Then the next morning, my sister woke me up, calling. She was frazzled about some problem with her babysitter and wanted to drop off my baby nephew for the weekend. She was already pulling up. I told Estelle I had to run, but was bursting with love and affection for her. "It's no big deal," she said, and the room suddenly felt a few degrees cooler. When my sister arrived, she was a mess, late for a work trip, and there was nobody else she could get a hold of. I didn't know anything about taking care of a baby. I was afraid of breaking it. "You're not going to break him. Don't be such a scaredy cat," she said, and Lois was out the door. I did my best to feed him and change his diapers. I had to put the crib together so the baby could take a nap, but I was so exhausted that I fell asleep reading the instructions. When I woke up, the baby was missing. I panicked. This was exactly what I was worried about. I took a breath, and I tried to figure out what happened. There was a bottle of chocolate sauce on the ground, and my cabinet doors were all open. Chocolate fingerprints were everywhere, all over the carpet and the furniture. I looked up and found the baby in the top drawer of this dresser I had. He must have used the lower drawers as steps, and he was sleeping inside the open drawer. When he saw me, he just giggled. I was about to give the little monster a bath when there was a knock at my door. Before I could move, I heard Estelle's voice. "Guess who?" She was accusing me of having a family and ran back into her apartment. I had to play her favorite romance song to get her out. And finally, when she stepped out, I told her the baby was my nephew, and I needed her help. She helped me clean up and take care of the little crumb cruncher. I told her I was hoping for a more exciting second date. But Estelle said that it was lovely and asked me if I wanted to have kids. All of a sudden, things were getting heavy. I was remembering all those statistics about broken families. She kind of scared me away from the conversation, getting so serious so soon. It was about that point that I started to get sick. I excused myself to the bathroom. I opened up the window to get some air. I felt really weak and nauseated. And then I got this sudden drop in my stomach, like I was going downhill on a roller coaster. Everything seemed so big, like the whole room was expanding. I couldn't see myself in the mirror, and I screamed. But I kept shrinking. I grabbed onto the knob of the cabinet door. I heard these pounding footsteps. Estelle was rushing into the bathroom. I could hear her voice booming, asking if I was okay. But when I cried out, she couldn't hear me. When she saw the window, I heard her say, "I can't believe you snuck out on me and left me to take care of this baby." She stomped her foot and everything shook. I fell off the handle and smacked onto the ground. It was a big fall for me, and her heel almost crushed me several times. I ran around, avoiding her footsteps. I jumped onto her heel, and I managed to make it up to the cuff of her jeans. She took me to the patio, looking out into the parking lot. I had to make my way to her ear, but when I got to her belt loop, she brushed me aside and flicked me into the wilderness. When the wind blew, I had to hold on to twigs. It was the first time I had a chance to think, what had caused this? The only thing I could think of was picking up those envelopes from the laboratory basement. If I could get Estelle to listen to me, or even hear me, then maybe she could get me back to the lab. I didn't think I could manage to crawl up her body, and I figured a better approach would be to find a way to get eye level. The front door would be my only option. I made the trek around the corner and climbed around giant pebble mountains. I didn't want to just sit around by the door waiting for her to come out and crush me, so I surveyed the scene, and I found the perfect option. There was this thread of webbing that led all the way up to the top corner of the door frame to a dusty spider web. If I could climb up there, I might be able to reach her attention from up high. I dove for a piece of webbing and started to crawl. It stuck to me, but I used a twig to cut the spare web as I climbed. Suddenly, a spider shadow loomed over me. This giant monster was on the opposite wall, and I could have sworn he was staring at me. I froze, paralyzed. Suddenly, the webbing was getting stickier, and I saw the spider crawling toward me. "Move! Jump! Do something!" I was yelling at myself. But all I could think about was the fact that there weren't a lot of statistics for being accidentally shrunken and eaten by a giant spider. But in the middle of my worst nightmare, I remembered how much adventure I lived to get up here. Maybe the world is a tough place. Maybe love is risky, and romance dangerous. But that was life. And suddenly, that big spider didn't seem so scary. I jabbed first and poked it right into one of its 8 eyes. It got angry and came harder at me, but I whacked it again, and then the monster got dizzy. I thought about Estelle, my star, and I felt alive. I had somebody to fight for, and suddenly, all I wanted was commitment. That didn't scare me at all. I cut the webbing with my giant twig, and just before he reached me, the web gave, and the spider fell all the way to the floor. Then the door opened. It was Estelle. I swung on the vine and waved at her, passing her field of vision. I let go of the web and soared closer, latching onto her earring. "Estelle, it's me!" I shouted. "I never left, and I never will as long as you'll have me." I explained that I had shrunk and fought a spider to get to her. She was surprised, of course, but the scientists at the lab were able to confirm my theory. But after swimming in a potion, I grew back to size. But it was all worth it to be by Estelle. And I told her how much I appreciated her stepping in and caring for my baby nephew. I said we made a great team, and that I would love to have children one day. When my sister returned to pick up the baby, I introduced her to Estelle and said she was a really important person to me. She said I seemed to have a new confidence, and I think it was true. Having love made me stronger. The most important lesson I learned was that fortune favors the bold. Even if you're not fighting off a giant spider, don't be afraid to go up and talk to that girl or guy you have a crush on. What's the worst that could happen? Tell us about your crush in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.